Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another episode of How Would You Build It? Rainier, welcome back. Episode 32. How are you doing?
Yeah, great, Bobby. Good to be here. Lekker to chat once again. Some exciting
Yeah.
stuff. So,
Yeah.
yeah, need to get into it.
Yeah, 100%. Today we're going to be talking about deconstructing, a topic that we brought up in the newsletter. It's quite interesting. I'm going to be picking your brain mostly of this, but it's for all those builders out there. And I think we need to start referencing our audience as builders because those are the ones that we're referencing. All those people on the ground building cool things, whether you're a founder, you're a product manager, product owner, whether you're designing stuff, you could be anywhere on that kind of production line. We want to kind of talk to you how we can break down these startups, these businesses, and how they're all making it work in interesting climates out there, right? Renier, there's the topic, the
Yeah,
concept of deconstructing. Do you want to just explain it and what is it and why should we be paying attention to it?
yeah. It actually the words says exactly what it is, right? So if you were to construct something, if you were to deconstruct it, you would pull the pieces apart and look at what those pieces do and what function it fills within that which makes the product successful. So it's something that I've not heard a lot of founders do as a thought exercise, but I think it's really valuable. And what it's useful for is really understanding the underlying mechanics, dynamics, the nuances as to why certain things are successful and working, right? And if you look at any successful product, and we're going to dive into some examples now, but if you look at any successful product, it's a culmination of a lot of different things that are working together to build momentum towards people using, engaging, sharing,
Mm,
and driving, the key metrics of the application. So
mm,
when you understand the underlying motivations, and why people do certain things or behave in a certain way, not only in the app but in their day-to-day lives, then it becomes easier to design products and offer services that actually speak to that. And
mm,
we can learn a lot from other successful or even unsuccessful apps. So the exercise is really saying, let's look at a successful app or an unsuccessful app. Let's pull it apart.
mm,
Let's look at each individual part of it and say, well, why does this work? Like, what is unique here? And
mm,
then from that place, take learnings and say, okay, if we were to build not even a competing app, but if we were building an app that appeals to a similar target market, like what can we learn from how they did certain things in this app, and how do we
mhm.
take those learnings into how we design our product and help us get the same kind of traction or the same kind of
Yeah.
stickiness or the same kind of conversion.
Yeah, and I must tell you, Rene, more than once, but this happened a lot while in my days at Sweep South. But the term is school fees, right? So we always, if you're in the starter space or you're building something, everyone talks about school fees. It's like, what are those learnings that you have to, like, you do those mistakes, right? You do something and you realize it was wrong. You know how many times, Rene, this is not an exaggeration, the amount of times we said to people that would either join the company and they'll have these great ideas. And we're like, yo, we tried that. It doesn't work. And so the point why I'm bringing that up is school fees are so important. So go look at the people that have been trying to unpack this because they've got all the school fees. So go and unpack what they've already done because there's lessons inside there, you know, and see if you can avoid them or there's a reason why they've built things a certain way and go and figure it out. So you just save yourself the pain of going through and doing something else. But is that not innovative if you're just trying to copy and paste?
So I think that's kind of the difference. So this isn't actually copying and pasting. This is more understanding like
Mm-hmm.
why something was built in a specific way. Okay, so I mean, you reference saying to people things don't work. They don't work, but they might work with a little angle or a different focus. The same thing might work just with a slight pivot or a slight adjustment in how you approach it. And a good example would be, I mean, maybe you've tried some Google ads to get people to convert, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, taking a slight little pivot, how that those ads get presented, like maybe the copy that gets used, or in combination with another thing. So that combination could unlock the kind of growth that you're looking for, right? So what could that
Mm-hmm.
combination be? Maybe doing PR together with Google Ads, so people read about it in the press and then they see it. So this is a very simple example, but if you look at some of the companies and the things they're doing, and you identify a company that's really good at acquiring customers and their customer growth seems to be really good, go look at the different things they're doing. And you'll find these combinations of things that they are doing. And that could spark ideas of saying, hey, if we do a combination, that could work. Now, if you want to take it a level deeper, you can actually go, maybe it's not about the combination, but why does this combination work? Okay, this combination works because there's this habit of people perhaps, seeing something online, driving a car, hearing a radio ad, and then getting home if they see the ad, then they'll engage, right? If you can understand that kind of pattern, you can go, oh, wait a minute, either I copy that pattern,
mm,
and do something similar to it, or I just it makes me think about my product and the kind of behavior that my users would go through to get them to a point of conversion and engagement. So it's really,
mm,
a
mm,
lot of it is philosophical, a lot of it is like psychological, really. A lot of it is really just understanding the why. And what I've personally found is understanding that why really sparks ideas of how you could do stuff in your own product,
mm,
and try different things which are not that obvious. And I
mm,
think
mm.
that's a big thing. We look at
Yeah.
established products, and we go, oh, it's so obvious how things work. None of that is obvious. Everything was intentionally designed
Yep.
towards underlying motivation, psychology, time of day, how you
Mhm,
think about it. They've worked all of that out, right?
mhm,
And enough of those things enough of those levers, strategic levers, pull together to actually get a successful
mm,
execution at the end of the day. So
mm, mm,
deconstruction is really about breaking it down and figuring out, like, what levers are these guys using? Like,
mm,
how are they doing? How are they moving people across the value chain? Like, what are some of the underlying motivation and drivers that get
mm,
them there? And that's
mm,
really what
mm.
it's about. So definitely not copy pasting. It's more a case of understanding the whys and getting
Mm,
inspired by the whys in order to go and
yeah,
create
yeah.
your own whys.
Yeah, and I think a nice way to understand the whys is in product management or UX, whatever it is, research, right? So something that I don't think a lot of people, a lot of early founders seem to forget. And if you just listen to 2 minutes of a YC anything, they'll be like, talk to customers, right? And in that conversation, when you're talking to customers or talking to potential users or that will be using your solution, you get them to deconstruct their story, right? So you tell them, like, when you want, so we're going to go into the Checkers 6060 for those of you that are waiting to see the examples. But if you talk to someone to deconstruct their experiences, like, tell me when you needed something, but you couldn't go to the shop, what did you do? And they deconstruct that story to you. And then all of a sudden you start understanding where those gaps and opportunities are, and you can deconstruct it from there as well. So understanding what are they currently using, what works, what doesn't work, and then try and figure out where those gaps are that you can start, tapping into and potentially being that innovation that kind of isn't the copy and paste, but more of the iteration that makes the difference. What do you think?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Actually, Bobby, you touched on a very important point. So often I meet founders and I go, "Cool, I'm going to do customer interviews, right?" But for them to come up with really good questions to get deep insights is really hard because they don't know what to ask, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
go start asking some of the general questions like, explain to me the last time you did this or used this service or did that, or explain to me apps tell me about apps that you use that do X, Y, and Z, right? And those
Mm-hmm.
questions aren't useless, but they don't really get into the detail meat of, okay, why would I do certain things? Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
a good exercise is actually to go look at an app which someone you're going to interview typically would use, right? And often engage with. So look at the target market you're trying to engage, look at apps they'll typically use, deconstruct some of those apps, and actually in that process of deconstruction you can figure out, like, okay, let's say, as in a very simple example, Uber Eats would send me a push notification at 4:30. Okay, and often they talk about specific items in that push message. Okay, why did I send it at 4:30? Okay, what is the copy saying of that message,
Mm-hmm.
and like, what are they driving me towards? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
where they're driving me to a screen where I can order with a promo code. Okay, why am I getting a promo code? Okay, if I start asking these questions and I make assumptions on what those answers could be, I could go and derive kind of user behavior that they've unpacked to say, like, okay, and I'm using a very simple example because it's kind of obvious that full 30 people would want to do um, takeout. But I can derive and say, cool,
I was old
this is
school
how
anyway.
they are analyzing the user behavior to determine, but they're analyzing the user behavior to say, great, this is probably a good thing to push to me at that time. Right. Now, this is only a small part of driving user engagement and driving a sale within an app. But understanding them, trying to get to the bottom of why they do it, what are they sending, what are they offering, what are they engaging with, can give me a
Mm-hmm.
really good idea of, okay, do people want to buy certain things at a certain time of the day, right? So I'm building a different apps, not a competitor to Uber Eats, but I also want to deliver something to someone and have their
Mm-hmm.
attention during a specific time of the day. Now I have this
Mm-hmm.
background of deconstructing Uber Eats to understand that they
Mm.
believe it's quite interesting to or quite valuable for them to engage a user at 4:30 in the afternoon, and they probably get really relatively good engagement because they keep doing it, right? So from that, I can then go, cool. Maybe a good time for me to send engagement is at 4:25, right? So just before that Uber Eats one, I get in there and I have a good chance of engaging users. Okay. I might not build my app that way, but now when I have my user interviews, one of the questions I can pose to people is saying, "What do you do at 4:30 on a Tuesday afternoon?" Right? And they can explain that to me. They can go, "No, I'm actually
Exactly.
sitting at home." Okay, cool. uh, do you normally eat takeaways on a Tuesday, or do
Mm.
you eat in? Do you cook home, cook meal? Okay. Then they go, no, we normally do takeaways. Okay, but you wouldn't have had that context of asking those questions that could help you understand your customer better had you not deconstructed another app to understand what they're trying to do in order to create those questions to start with. So I think the beautiful thing about this is it actually helps you create awesome questions that you can ask your customers and not
Mhm.
just go there and ask the standard things. It doesn't really lead
Mm.
to in-depth understanding of how to
Mm.
engage your customer in a meaningful
Mm.
way and
Mm.
actually convert them into a sale.
Mm, mm. And the thing is, you're looking at the behaviors of people, but you actually look at. I mean, you can ask any designer the big question: where do you get inspiration? They're not just coming up with this on their own. I mean, the innovation is happening in other places. So you go and kind of look at what is the technology already doing? What's already out there? What's working? What do you enjoy doing? What makes sense for you? The amount of times that we've copied features, and I'm not talking about like secret things, but a nice way to handle up your profile, a nice way to handle your preferences on a app, whether it's a
Yeah.
Pinterest or something else. But you go and see how they're displaying it to you. How have they deconstructed it to so that it's easy to use and stuff, and then you kind of copy it and you start adding your use cases, your business to it, your logic to it, but you're starting from a base that already works. And so again, those school fees, you're kind of just building on top of somebody else's. Because I mean, if we didn't do that, we would still be working on Windows 95 at UI, which we know wasn't great, right? So go look what's happening already, get that inspiration that kind of gives you the fuel to use that lesson into what you're trying to build. So I always think about it with this one specifically. I use user profiles as an example, but when you have different entities, what if your profile, you need to have a company level and a personal level, right? So there's permissions, and you go look at how have other people solved this problem. How are they done it? How are you able to swap between two users in the same app? Oh, that's really smart. We can do the same thing and then bring in the new technology, right? And I think it's a nice way also to sort of deconstruct current technology, current apps, current websites that have probably similar problems to you and how they've solved it. But from a business point of view, Renier, we can start diving into the 6060 talk, right? So in the newsletter, we spoke recently about the success of Checkers 6060. You kind of mentioned just the success of 6060. We've had Pick and Pay as ASAP, we've had Dash, we've had all these other delivery, we had Mr. D, we had all of these things, but it didn't work as well as Checkers 6060. So what have they done right that Pick and Pay didn't get right, for example?
Yeah, so actually, Pick and Pay ASAP is quite new. I think 6060 launched before ASAP, but Pick and Pay had traditional e-commerce, which they launched a long time ago. And traditional e-commerce was pretty much looking at what is a take a lot of the world or a Amazon of the world, and saying, okay, if we were to deliver groceries, take how they do it and just do it for groceries, right? So I remember quite a few years ago, probably like 5 years ago, I'm like, this is pretty cool. I'm an early adopter. Let me try this grocery thing. Cool. I want this frozen chips, and I want this burger patties, and let me buy this and that and that. Anyway, so I fill up my trolley, which is quite cool, like an online trolley. You don't have to walk through the aisles and get it, but I fill it up and I go, cool, let me order, right? And I press order and go through the process, and they go, cool, we can deliver Tuesday at 10:30. Now, that for me was a problem because some of the stuff I had in my trolley, if I need it right now, I might as well go to the store and get it right now. But then I just might just as well buy all of the other things. right? So that was the first issue. Like it was like, okay, cool. I can't wait 3 days for a delivery. That's not going to work, right? So the second thing that was also really frustrating is I wasn't home Thursday at 10:30, right? So if you
Mm,
deconstruct that as a solution for a user, it really didn't work. What it did work for is people in the restaurant industry, catering, etc., because they could go, cool, I want to order eggs and flour and baking materials for Tuesday, because Tuesday is when I start baking cakes again for the weekend market that I'm going towards, right? So it worked
mhm,
for that. And Woolworths had a very similar offering. Like you could order anything in Woolworths, but you couldn't. You have to wait a few days for it to get delivered. So there was another thing that was also quite frustrating is the fact that some of the items that I wanted to put in my basket actually wasn't in stock. That's the stuff I really wanted. If I knew that wasn't in stock, I would have driven to the store. So
mm,
I think somewhere in the Checkers Shoprite X boardroom, people were deconstructing this e-commerce play and going, listen, there's a lot of stuff here that doesn't work. So firstly,
mm,
the stuff right now. I don't want it 5 days from now. And the funny thing is, if we talk about it now that we're used to Woolies
mm.
Dash and Pick and Pay
60-60.
ASAP and Checkers 6060, we've kind of become used to it. We go, of course, you don't want the stuff on Tuesday. You want it right now. But back then, that was the way it worked. It was like you can get your
Mm,
stuff on Tuesday.
mm,
So as a consumer, if we deconstruct that and we look at it, we go, cool, I want the stuff right now, right? So that's the first thing that's really important, right? Like in the next hour is when I want it, because typically the user behavior is, I get home from work, I need to figure out what am I going to eat tonight. 4 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe you go, cool, I want to order some stuff. I want to braai tonight, right? So,
mm,
so you want the stuff within an hour. The second thing is actually a cool way or a efficient way to swap out items that aren't in stock. And 6060 managed to do that, and usually partnering with Zulzi, which is a startup. Shout out for corporates working with startups. Love that. They figured out this cool way of actually, the person picking off the shelf going, this isn't in, can I give you this alternative? And then you can quickly say yes, no, yes, no. And that has evolved quite a lot to solve that problem. What's also awesome is if we can deconstruct 6060 a bit, is like if they deliver within 60 minutes, we've got no cold chain issues. So if you have any frozen goods and they
mm.
deliver it within 16 minutes, well, it's not really going to be go off in that. So I think that's quite smart.
Yeah,
And then what's really interesting is the fact that if you order now and the expectation is you're getting it in 60 minutes, chances are you're going to be home or be
yeah,
sure that you are home. So it's
exactly.
not that issue that we sometimes get with take a lot deliveries of going, well, the guy said he's going to be there at 3 p.m., but he wasn't.
Mm,
So
mm,
I'm at the gym now. Like, I can't take my
mm,
packet now. Whereas with
mm,
6060, you're going to order and hang around and wait for 60 minutes. So I have way less issues, I believe, in getting those deliveries made successfully.
mm.
So they did a lot of that right. And if you take it a step further, what they've also done really well, which I think a lot of the other guys that try and sell from different stores, even the likes of Uber Eats, have trouble with, is they can basket price on 6060, right? So what that means is through smart data, and I mean, technically, I'm not saying they're doing this, but they could change prices of items specifically for me based on an understanding of what I normally buy, for them to ensure that their basket margin is good when I'm buying, right? Because remember, I'm not walking around in the store checking what the actual prices are. I'm looking on the app, right?
Mm, mm, mm,
So me having an extra savings card, having spent with them, they could go, look. Renier always buys bread, so let's make his bread cost price, because if he buys bread, he normally buys meat as well, and then maybe they mark up the price of
mm,
meat a
mm,
bit. Maybe they don't do it for me specifically, but maybe they do in batches. Maybe they do it location based. They definitely do it in the store, because ultimately the objective of basket pricing is that you get a good GP margin on a basket instead of a specific
mm,
item, right? So you'll
mhm,
you'll mark down certain items which people are price sensitive towards. As an example, I know what the price of bread, milk, and chicken is per kilogram, right? So I know that off
mm,
the top of my head. But there's other items I have no idea what those cost, right? So for
mm,
those
mm,
items, you can you can mark up a 10-50% margin. I wouldn't know because I actually
mm,
don't know what they cost. But mark up milk by 15%, I'll go, wow, milk is really expensive at Checkers, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So the idea that they have all of this data now, they can really basket price and make good margins, and that's where they're going to beat other people. Like they're going to smash
Mm,
other acts because they,
mm,
they have the volumes, they have the data, and they can really make sure they get GP margins
mm.
on their baskets.
Yeah. What I really love about the story, and I think that's what's great about 6060 specifically, is because everyone can relate to it, not just because of the Rugby World Cup at the moment, but everyone can relate, right? So you've probably got the app on your phone, you've probably looked at it, and it's such a great example of bringing product and operations and business strategy and bringing them in together to one. And it's very visible for everyone to see. So if you were in the space, you would walk into a Checkers and all of a sudden see they've got a whole new section where they stack the brown bags for the delivery guys to come pick up from, right? So you're looking at how product, you made a great example now, right? So one of the best things that we do in product is recommendations, right? So whenever someone sees something, you don't realize that our lives are ruled by algorithms, right? So like you just said now, oh, Renier likes to buy bread, which Annie also likes his boerewors. So let's just show him that boerewors, and now you're kind of getting that basket together. So we're using the product to suggest things to you, and you go like, yes, actually I do want that, and thank you very much, I'll put that in my cart. So there's that innovation part, that recommendation, the technology telling you what you want. But now you marry it with, let's test this. And as they test, they realize that they need to go to the stores, because it's not a warehouse. There's literally Checkers employees walking around with this gun going, this is an order, this is an order, this is an order, putting that trolley together for you, making that brown bag and having it to put it somewhere. So now you have to think operationally. I mean, if I think about operationally, what a nightmare, but they've solved that problem because most people are receiving their stuff within that 60-minute promise. And so how do you scale that? You can, I mean, the technology is there, it's already scaled, but now operationally, you have to get every store that you provide the service to be up to date with their operations, make sure the manager knows how this works. Have they built the place for the bags? Is there a good pickup point for the delivery guys? How do you check that they've taken the right bag? I mean, the list goes on, right? So you can deconstruct that whole end-to-end process from the technology through to the actual operations and say, okay, cool, how did they make this work? And then again, talking about how would you build this, you can look at how do other industries. So, where's Dischem going wrong, or where is because we've used them in the podcast before. But what are other retailers out there missing that you could kind of learn from 6060 and these other delivery models? How can we use them to help other businesses grow their revenue? Because I mean, yeah, it's working, right? I mean, what was the number? Rand revenue or something like that 6060 have been able to achieve?
Yeah, it's not clear, but a MoneyWeb article actually guessed it at around 3.5 billion. I actually think it's more,
Okay, yeah,
um,
3.5, yeah.
which is actually staggering. A startup within a corporate that launched just before COVID. So it's technically a 4-year-old startup doing a few billion rand a year. Okay,
Mm,
sure, they've got the backing, the scale, the marketing budget, all of that stuff, but it's
mm,
still a very significant achievement. It's probably one of the best achievements of any corporate innovation project in South Africa in recent history. Like they've done
mm,
exceptionally well. I mean, they're now sponsoring stuff in the World Cup, and
mm,
just came from the airport. It's everywhere on there, and I think the reason for that is they had the first mover advantage. Now, some would say they had the last mover advantage in e-commerce, but I disagree. They created a whole new category of delivery, and they were probably the first big retailer to launch their own app and pioneer it in the way that they're doing.
mm,
But
mm,
through most likely deconstruction and observation, like the likes of Pick and Pay and even Spar to You, and all of these stores are now following, right? But now it's a race, right? So now it's at scale phase. You can see that's why they're throwing money into marketing,
mm, mm,
and it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful model. I mean, if you compare it to Takealot, like Takealot needs to put up distribution centers. They've got the distance between, call it last mile delivery, but the distance between DC and my house as a distribution point in between, and then last mile to my house. That's quite an operation to get it here. Checkers already has the store around the corner from my house, and that store ain't going anywhere. It's sitting there
mm,
and it's got stock, right?
mm, mm,
So all they had to do is literally do last mile. So it's so hard to think how anybody that doesn't have that retail footprint can compete with them. I don't
mm,
think they can. And on the other side, you're seeing some other people actually looking at this, most likely deconstructing it and figuring out, cool, there's something here to learn for us. So, um, Bash, which is the Foschini Group's e-commerce play, they've got a little bit of an element that's traditional e-commerce, but something I believe they picked up on, how Shoprite's doing it, and or at least Checkers is doing it with 6060, is they're using all of the TFG stores as distribution points. So in a similar way, they're going, cool, we don't have to build DCs everywhere. We've got this infrastructure going already. Let's say on a
mm,
motorbike or something simple, to take it from there to our customers, right? So all of a sudden, they've got this massive distribution network, and just slotting in the last mile
mm,
actually, gives them a lot more legs.
mm,
So the space is definitely eating up, and people are figuring out. And what I actually love is a lot of startups are becoming suppliers, B2B service providers or B2B software providers, more interestingly,
mm,
to these services, these last mile delivery services, offering a lot of opportunity.
mm,
So, e-commerce, traditional e-commerce, I think it's evolved into something completely different. What we're looking at now
mm,
is a
mm,
lot different. And yeah, quite exciting what Checkers is doing in this space.
mm, mm,
And it's good to see others following as well. I mean, it's nice to
mm,
have competition and
mm,
options. But the fact that it is an app means, as a user, you are most likely going to download one app and use
mhm.
that one app. You're not
Yeah.
you're not gonna. I mean, let's be honest. If you've used 6060 before and the experience was good, chances are you're just going to do it again. Downloading the Spar2U app and the Pick and Pay ASAP app and the Woolies Dash app, and now trying to figure out which one you're going to go for,
Mm,
it's just not going to play out that way.
yeah.
So, and I think Checkers knows this. So as soon as you're entrenched, you sign up, you've used it, you're probably going to continue using it,
Mm, mm.
and they'll keep winning.
Yeah, and I have one last point to raise before we wrap up for today, Rainier. But I think if you go ahead also, right, and you see that take that deconstruction sort of philosophy towards, let's use 6060 as our current example, but looking at other apps, other businesses, and deconstructing what they're doing, you might find those gaps that complement that offering. And I think we've spoken about this again on that Dischem podcast that we've done before, but there are maybe smaller startups that fit into that supply chain. So just using the 6060 example or the delivery example, I mean, there's a whole industry waiting around the management of the bike riders and bike maintenance and the safety and the insurance and the just on that section, which is in that last mile. So now you actually go and help Checkers 6060 because you see that there's a gap. Once you've deconstructed their end-to-end kind of product or business, you can find gaps in them, and again, you can do that for many different companies. Just go and figure
Yeah.
out a better way to innovate to improve what they need.
Yeah, it's about understanding like where some of the challenges lie, where they have substantial risk, and helping them offset some of that risk with a service offering. So,
Mm,
a risk could be in an area where they don't have as many deliveries yet.
mm-hmm,
They'd love to make use of delivery as a service, right? So instead of employing people or paying them a fixed fee to be around and deliver plus a delivery fee or managing that, they could go, look, we just pay 15 delivery. You supply the deliveries. We don't care how it happens. Like, you do it for us, and that,
mm,
a company could provide that service, and then, together with that, and perhaps Uber Eats, Mr. D Food, maybe two or three other companies that are non-competing and also want deliveries, and
mm,
finding a good way to manage all of them to optimize the routes they take. You could build a business that is delivery as a service,
mm,
like last mile delivery as a service. But in that, we've spoken before about building, when there's a gold rush, either build a gold mine or, build picks and
fix.
shovels. And,
Mm,
we prefer the picks and shovels. The picks and shovels in this is, there's a company called Problem, and I think there are quite a few others like startups. So it's really providing software to these companies to optimize the routes drivers take to get the minimum time on
mm,
the road, great customer
mm,
satisfaction, and minimum money spent. So
mm,
offer that as a piece of software, and you could have a nice license fee that goes with that. And I think there's a lot of software around this value chain and capitalize. Another one is founders are reading our newsletter. It's a company company called Motion Ads, which does these ads that go on the boxes of the
Mm,
motorcycles, but they have these really interesting things of showing the amount of impressions that those ads got as these drivers drove around different areas. They're doing some really cool interactive campaigns where if you see them in certain places, you can win prizes and stuff. So that's it's also something that's now new since we have a lot more motorbikes driving around. There's opportunity to do that.
yeah,
So a lot of exciting stuff happening in the space. Today, I actually saw a 6060 delivery that wasn't done by a motorbike, but it was actually done by an electric vehicle. They're driving around Stellenbosch doing Checkers 6060 delivers an electric vehicle instead of a motorbike. So that was pretty cool to
amazing.
see as well.
Yeah, amazing. Checkers 360. And we'll have self-driving cars doing it soon for us as well. And
And drone deliveries.
yeah, whole different. We'll go talk to the guys at Aerobotics then Stellenbosch, see if they're keen. Eh?
Yeah.
All right, Rene. Well, thank you very much. It's super interesting, actually. I'm really chuffed on how that conversation went around deconstruction because I think it really is something important, and you can look at it from many different angles when you're looking at the technology or the business itself. So, thank you very much, and yeah, we'll see you next week, everyone. Thanks for joining. Cheers, Rene.